Yeah, we did a couple changes, so it's
I like it.
yeah,
And your setup is simple and easy.
it's very simple, super easy. One person.
Yeah, one person.
I wish it would be like outside. You have the sun shining on us instead of the artificial lights.
Yeah.
But I just like the.
The only problem with the sun is that your lighting in your camera, it just
Yeah.
never works out.
No,
No, we do outdoor shoots all the time, but
it's
you
so
know,
tough.
well, the guys are looking at where the sun angle is. They've got their devices
Yeah.
out, and it's like we can shoot here for 2 hours and then we can't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and not all, you get the harsh shadows on the face,
yeah. Yeah.
and this like artificial lights, they just make you look like so vibrant.
Well, we do all those outdoor shoots. We actually have lights.
Oh, I saw that
Yeah,
setup.
good. Yeah. We have. They have some hardcore lights just to make sure that the video, that the lighting is okay.
Wow.
You want to sync up?
Yeah.
Let's sync up.
Okay.
Okay, so cross your right leg over. Let's get into the same bubble.
Okay. Yeah.
Right arm underneath left armpit.
Right arm
Underneath left armpit.
underneath left armpit. Yeah.
Left arm on top.
Okay.
Turn your head to the left and your body to the right. Yeah, and then we'll breathe 6 breaths together, 3 through the mouth and 3 through the nose. So breathe in. Through your nose. Brings us into the same bubble.
Wow.
Yeah.
Breathing is so powerful.
Well, if you move your body in the exact position and you breathe at the exact same time, it energetically sinks you into a bubble. Like if there were 30 people around us and you did that, you'd feel like it was just us.
Wow. You sync up always?
Always. I mean, I think we do it before we eat, before we do any video, any podcast or any content or anything like that, or before every meeting. So like for us, we'll do it like, 5, 6, 7 times a day.
Wow.
Doesn't it feel like you're in a bubble?
Yeah. Feels good.
So think about synchronized swimmers.
Okay.
Or a dance team. If you get a dance team and you think about them, you watch how they move in sync. Everything is in sync. Well, part of that is because they go on to performance. They sync up before they go on to the performance. They're moving exactly in sync. Or a synchronized swimming team, the same thing. So there's a magic to it, and all it takes is 6 breaths to do it. And it doesn't, technically it could be like this, it could be like this, as long as you're in the same position. But the counter-rotated position of the fascial maneuvers actually tells your cells that you're in a fetal position, because that's technically a fetal position is like this.
What does a day in Gary's life look like?
It's quite a bit the same. I get up at sunrise, do maneuvers to the sun, and our team or whoever's traveling with us, usually most people will do it to the sunrise. I get up actually slightly before sunrise and I do the Nano V. Because the Nano V is like that machine, it reorganizes the proteins in your cells. And you can feel it, like viscerally, you can feel it, loosens up your fascia and your skin.
What's the Nano V?
It's from Ing3. It's a medical device. It's the only thing I carry with me, because I carry a small suitcase and that's all I have. The Nano V, what it does is, you've probably seen it. It's a square thing. It's got a hose up and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it on the table just when I visited you, but I wasn't sure. So what do you do with that?
Well, what it does is it reorganizes the proteins in your cell. So every disease is a protein folding issue. So proteins build in your cells, and kind of like scaffolding. And due to Wi-Fi, chemicals, all kinds of different things, your proteins start to fold. And when your proteins fold, you have disease issues. So this stops protein folding issues. One of the things for sports and performance is like an athlete. if you're tearing a muscle, or you're actually usually tearing fascia first and then the muscle, it liquefies the fascia. So in professional sports, when we would start implementing it, they would have less injuries, faster recovery. So I take that around. Like, we have 2 devices, and as we split up, we take those with us everywhere.
Wow. And what else? Like, how do you just told me before we started that you age minus negatively.
-2.
Yeah,
So my
-2.
biological age is 30. And, well, that was in November, but I can actually feel it moving faster. So there's been an acceleration. My red blood cells, when I had them tested last time, they were like, my RDW was 10.4, which means that it's that of a youthful, like an 8 to 12-year-old. So I get up, I go in the NV, do fascial maneuvers, and then I start with my day. My day is always pretty packed. Like, so 7:30-ish, we're depending where we are, where the sun is, and then shower. I use oils, essential oils from Dr. Nick, Essential Oil Wizardry. I put on the oils that I'm going to use for the day, and then I start my day. And depends, like if we're like we're in LA here, so we'll be in here for like a 10 or 14 day film shoot. So we're shooting content for podcasts, we're shooting content for education, we're doing documentary content. So we film probably 5 days a week. And then when I'm back in Cancun or in Vancouver, where we are, it's pretty much the same, a little less filming. That's all. Yeah.
When do you go to sleep? How's your bed?
Oh, yeah. So I only eat once a day.
Okay.
I eat usually 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've tried all different versions of that. I tried eating in the morning and stuff like that too. But I find that eating in the afternoon is the most powerful for me. And everybody's slightly different. There's nothing that works for me that works for you exactly. So everybody has to find their own rhythm. And a lot of people go to a schedule, like I'm going to eat based on this schedule, or I'm going to do this based on what I believe. I do it on what my body feels. So I know how to dive into my body and then feel my body, and if it wants to. And so, like, sometimes I'll eat through the day, I'll eat earlier in the day, but generally, most of the time I'll eat at 3 o'clock. I'll have some snack, like some nuts and some fruit at like 6 o'clock. But and then somewhere towards the evening, I'll get out in the sun as it's going down, if I can get to the sun, or I'll use a red light, and then I start winding down my day. But usually for me, it's sunrise to sunset, and then about 3 hours after sunset, I'm done.
And what about the nutrition?
Nutrition, I've been plant-based since 2021.
Okay.
And I'm open to everything. I've been a vicious carnivore my whole life. Like, I could tell you any time of my life, I could tell you how much protein, fats, and carbs I ate roughly in a daytime, because I grew up as a bodybuilder. Yeah. So it's just ingrained in me. So letting go of that, rigid eating based upon a schedule, eating based because I had to meet a certain number throughout the day, I let that go after the fast. And I have this belief system. And first of all, most people have never fasted for 44 days. And then after that, for 2 years, I fasted 10 to 14 days every month. So I got really good at fasting, and I have this belief system about how the body works, which is different than the current norm. It's different than the current norm, and I'm testing it out.
On you?
On me, yeah, because I test it out on me, and if it works, then I share it. My current, if you think about it this way, if you eat 10 pounds of food and water, throughout the day or the days, you urinate, defecate, breathe, sweat 10 pounds. So at the end of it, all there is signaling. Eating more protein doesn't mean you absorb more protein. You actually, that triggers your body to produce the enzymes, produce the hormones that your body needs to recover. And if that's the case, then you're technically, you're not taking food, you're getting the information from the food. Does that make sense? So if you were to drink alcohol once a week, you'd be pretty drunk at 1 or 2 drinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to drink alcohol once a day, you would virtually not feel it after a while, or twice a day. So the more input that you give your body, the more your body normalizes that input. And so it doesn't react as strongly. Well, that's no different with food. So if you, over time, if your body is habituated to not have the same amount of food, and first of all, I've seen people try this, and I've seen all the studies and all the reports, but I reset my nervous system after 28 days of no food. Your nervous system resets, and all the memory of food resets. So, like for example, when when we were like in the 44 days of fast and we started eating again, it was Jason, Cynthia, and myself. We started consuming food again. The craziest thing was I knew that I liked this food, but I had no memory of the taste, which meant the memory was a feeling. And if you think about to remember, words are very phonetically, they have meaning to them. So if you were to dismember a body, you would cut it up in pieces. So if you're remembering, you're taking the pieces and putting it together. Memory's in the body and the cells. And the brain is what recalls and produces an experience based on that memory. So when we had our cells, our body out without food for over a month, what happened is that all the food reset its taste. So there were things that I didn't like that I could eat now. There's things that I'm like, wow, I've never actually experienced that flavor or that taste. It was a really bizarre experience.
Wow. Would you really recommend fasting for everyone? Or at least is it something that you should like look into, give a try? Because I think most people have never gone like I cannot imagine not eating for 40 days. That's a long time.
It's a long time. Okay, I think this is where I believe people get it wrong.
Okay.
You need to commit to it. And for me, if you're in, first of all, the body responds with contrast. So if you're always eating all the time, there's no contrast. So if you stop eating, even for 3 days, which is a perception cycle, if you stop eating for 3 days, your body then has a new chance and has more stimulus to respond. It's like changing a workout. If you do the same workout every day and never change it, your body stops growing. Well, that's no different with food or anything else that provides growth or growth factors to us. So I think that everybody should fast a little bit. But there are your belief systems heavily play into this. I've heard everybody say that like you have to build muscle to be healthy. Well, I've done the opposite of that. You got a chance to feel me. It feels like I have no muscle. It looks like I have muscle.
Yeah, looks like.
But that's not muscle. That's fascia muscle. So I call it fascials. I discovered it. I get to name it. So I have this incredible range of motion. I have joints that I can actually dislocate myself. I can actually wrap them all around. I have zero resistance. So like if you think about fascia being like your like a coating around muscles, even if you just say it's simply that, which it's not. And I restrict it right here. When I go to lift my muscles, I'm restricted. If I take away that restriction, I use less muscle energy to move through that range of motion. Muscles require a lot of energy to move. And they require a lot of energy to keep and store. Like if you don't work out your muscles, you lose them. If I don't work out, I don't lose anything. I am the same shape, same size, same build constantly. And if I don't do anything, I'm the same as if I do something. Now, this is coming from a guy who was a bodybuilder back in the 80s who lived in a gym. And so this is a completely different contrast or belief system to the one that I grew up with. And there's a mountain of evidence that shows you that building muscle means long life. But I haven't seen anybody who also has muscle that lives to 110, 120 years old. And I've seen people who fast, or yogis who do. So I'm just proposing that it's not what we say, and the science that we have about the body is actually, if you think about it, the science that we have about the body today, most of it's been done over the last 30 years. And if you look at what's happened over the last 30 years, is when you felt my arm, I'm 80% water. 30 years ago, we were 70% water. Today, the average person's 60 to 65% water. And water is the primary makeup of a human being. It's a gel-like substance. It's phase 4 water. And if we reduce a primary component of our health, then that affects our health in a dramatic way. And so what's happened over the last 30 years since we've been dehydrated, at the same curve, we've gotten all these diseases. So I was looking at it from a different perspective. I was saying, okay, why do we have all these diseases today? Why do we have all this dysfunction? Every disease known to mankind is at its peak today. There is no measure of human health today that is better than it was 50 years ago. Not. People even say, one of the common things people say is we're living longer, but that's not true. We're actually no longer living longer. That just takes a long time for that number, because it's statistics. You have to look at hundreds of millions of people or billions of people, and it takes a while for that to change. But we're not living longer. We're not healthier. We have breast cancer 1 in 2. Autism is 1 in 18 right now. Is 1 in 2,400 just 18 years ago. There are some systemic issues with the way we live our lives as human beings right now. And we're fed a bunch of marketing garbage that tells us who we are and how we should be. Like, one of the things is that through our community worldwide, we have tens of thousands of women that are coming out of menopause between 55 and 67. Now, I was always told that menopause was age-related. But when I got into clinic, I started seeing it getting younger, from the 60s into the 50s, and then into the 40s. And if women had a lot of stress, trauma, stress, or cancer, or anything like that, what I noticed is that sometime even in the late 30s, they'd start going into menopause, which means it had nothing to do with age. It has to do with wear and tear on the body. It's really congestion of the fallopian tubes. So now I have a woman that's 65 years old who's been out of menopause, or been in menopause for 20 years, who came out of menopause, who's actually getting ready to have a child. And this is going to blow the complete belief system around menopause and what it is away. But the entire world thinks that this is normal. They also think that having cycle pain for women during their monthly cycle is normal. That wasn't normal 100 years ago. It wasn't normal 75 years ago. These are all normalities in a very compressed and very dehydrated culture. So we're doing science on bodies that are not functioning, and we're saying science is, what happens when I put this in? Let's measure it. But we're measuring bodies that are getting worse and worse over time. So the science actually gets worse and worse over time too. Because if I'm hydrated and I'm sleeping properly and my body's functioning properly, I'm going to respond to the stimulus a lot different than if I'm actually dehydrated. Dehydrated is like being hungover.
What do you think is the biggest contributor of disease, or what harms people the most?
Dehydration.
Dehydration?
Yeah, and then after that, because dehydration also causes stress. So when you're dehydrated, your normal stress index goes up. When you're dehydrated, you have to use more muscle energy, adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol to move through your day. Those hormones age you very fast. And we're not meant to have this kind of hormonal array going on every day. That's not the way. And if you even go back and go to during the 70s, when the 60s and 70s, when Kennedy originally put in the fitness program in the schools, you watch the kids in the schools. If you go look at old videos, every single boy, completely lean. There's not one that's overweight. There's not one that's unhealthy looking. If you look at videos, true videos of the 50s and 40s and 50s, nobody was sick, nobody was overweight. And if you go back even into the early 1920s, and there's some videos like one in Flatiron, New York, and one in Vancouver. They show this rail car going through, and they had a camera on it. They had a film projector on it, and they've edited the film for modern time. But the one thing that I noticed when I watched it is every single person that was moved well. Everybody was stood up tall. Everybody was straight. Nobody was hunched over. Everybody walked properly. And movement is life. And the origin of all movement is breath. And if I'm sitting here all day long, which we do, and I have restriction around my rib cage from fascial restrictions, tightness, I don't breathe properly. My lower lungs don't work. And if my oxygen doesn't get to my lower lungs, less oxygen gets delivered to my tissue. And at the end of it, oxygen is your life. You got oxygen, you got water that you're trying to push into those tissues. And if there's restriction, it's harder for it to get there. And these are basics that I was looking at because here I am in a clinical practice, and I could see in the time that I had my clinic that people were getting sicker. It wasn't a small thing, it was a big thing. And anybody who's out there listening to this, who's a clinician, will know that. And people in the last 20 years, especially the last 10 years, have gotten progressively sicker. So there's something that we're doing in society that's wrong. And yeah, you can blame all the other factors like EMF and chemicals, and those are major impactors. But if our body is healthy, we have more tolerance for those things. And right now we're dehydrated and we're stressed out. And so we have less tolerance. So that things like EMFs that we were talking about earlier, they impact us more.
So with dehydration, do you mean we drink not enough water, or what do you mean with dehydration? Or how would you how do you hydrate correctly? Because I assume it's not just drinking more water.
No, as a matter of fact, most people drink filtered water because our water systems are so bad. Most filters are taking the minerals out, and the worst.
That's what they do, right?
They do, and the worst one is reverse osmosis, because it extracts everything out. Reverse osmosis was made for pharmaceutical productions. It's never meant to drink. So if you take water and water runs over a rock, over a period of time, it'll groove that rock like in a waterfall. It'll create a pathway because it's taking the minerals from the rock, and those minerals you would drink. And right now, the minerals that people have in their bodies are deficient. There's a lot of chemicals, like some of them are in the air, like barium, strontium, and aluminum. Barium depletes the body's silica. And silica is a base element. Without silica, we don't absorb calphos and selenium, all the other elements. Without those elements, we don't absorb minerals properly. And without the minerals, each mineral of the 102, each one is like a little pathway that goes to a part of your body to complete a function. And if you're missing, like 10 or 15 of those minerals, your body will find its way around. But if you're missing a lot of them or not absorbing them, then your body misplaces water. So you're seeing a lot of people today holding water. It looks like fat, but it's actually holding water. And it's because that water is sitting in the body because the body knows it needs it, but it can't get it to the tissue. The minerals are the conduit to get that water to the tissue. And if you're deficient in minerals, then you're going to be dehydrated and, ironically, still holding water in your body. So you could be heavily waterlogged in your body, but the water is not getting to the organs and to the fascial tissue and to the places that it needs to. So it's minerals.
And how do you get the right minerals?
Well, we put it very easily on our website. You can go download a guide. We have a hydration guide. We have a supplement guide. It talks about which minerals, why you need them, why they're being depleted. For us, we recommend diatomaceous earth, and we recommend Irish sea moss. Those are the core base. You can add some other ones on, like bladderwrack. If you take bladderwrack and Irish sea moss, you get 102 minerals. And but right now, people that are doing that still isn't working good enough. You need to have silica in addition to that, because the chemicals that we're breathing in our daily lives are depleting our silica. And we're made of silica. Silica is basically sand. And if you take sand, silica, and water, silica is what we're made of with water. We're supposed to be 70% water or 80% water technically. But when I grew up and studied, it was 70% water. You're 25% silica. That's your construction material. Then the rest of it is bacterias and parasites and things like that are part of being human. So we're supposed to have that composition. We're sand and water, and we're vibrating. We're frequency. And right now, today, people just literally are deficient in that silica, and as a result, they're not absorbing the rest.
Wow. I feel that. Yeah. Because like a lot of times when you feel dehydrated and just drinking more water doesn't do the trick.
It doesn't.
Yeah. Like your body like craves minerals or like water that has minerals. And I think mostly in cities you drink filtered water. Because all the water that you buy and the water filters is just the water is empty. There's no minerals in the water.
None.
Yeah. Because like minerals even taste a little bit sour, like a tiny bit.
Yeah, you can taste it in there.
You can taste minerals, and like water doesn't taste these days. Like it's very rare. I think there's one Italian brand I know where the water, it tastes different. You can feel a little bit of a mineral.
There's some mineral waters out there, and there are a couple brands, but for the most part, that's why you have that Alcaviva machine.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you take the machine, usually you put a mineralizer on the front end of it, and then you're getting minerals, which then conduct the electricity, and the electricity is what they're used to ionize that water, and then that structures the water, and that water then is water very much like if it came out of a mountain stream. That's why it tastes different. It feels different, like when you drink it.
Yeah, and you would say that is the biggest factor. Like you have thousands of people always coming to you, and I always wonder like what is their main problem.
I can tell you just from doing this, we started at the clinic, we gave 100% of the patients, so we had a homeopathic delivery system. So we gave them a series of homeopaths and a series of vitamins. And we added silica to 100% of the patients. And it was put into a formula, so we weren't saying we're giving you silica. We just gave it to them as part of the protocol. And we had 100% of the people that had a positive outcome, whether they were sick or whether they were performance athletes, and they performed better. They got better very fast. And we had out of 10,000 patients, we had a track record before we figured this out was about 6 years. So we had 4 years of adding silica to the protocols of people, and the results were very, very noticeable and dramatic.
Do you think you would feel the same and age the same if you were back on a carnivore diet?
It's not about just aging. It's about performance.
Or do you think you would perform the same?
There's no way. Listen, I have spent my whole life in performance. Sitting breath rate for me is 3 breaths per minute. 3, when you breathe, you oxidize. So you have to breathe, but the less you breathe, the more efficient your breath is, the less you oxidize. Oxidation is what's aging you. It's like an apple. When you cut an apple and it goes brown, well, that's what happens inside of us.
Is it like the heartbeat too? You want your resting heart rate as low?
My resting heart rate's in the 50s. So it's that's one thing that was interesting. I thought maybe it would go lower, but my resting heart rate's been in the 50s. But my breath rate is 3 breaths per minute. So one of the things that happens is I'm getting a lot of oxygen to my tissues. So if I do something strenuous, like if I put you on my shoulders and run up a hill, at the end of running up the hill, I'm not winded like I would have been before because I have more oxygen delivered to my tissue. I have less glycogen build up in my muscles and my tissue. I have very little muscle, which is contrary to the current belief system. And listen, there's a lot of science that is out there proving this a certain way. And I'm going to go back to like carnivore diet. And I wrote an article that actually was published all the way through all the papers here recently. And I just challenged the belief system. I said, look, there are some people that are genetically more predispositioned to eat meat. Some people that are genetically more disposition to eat plants. Wade Lightheart, I don't know if you know him from Biooptimizers. So the enzymes that we carry are from Biooptimizers. And Wade Lightheart, they know more about enzyme function than anybody on the planet. They have 80 scientists working on this. He, at 50 years old, won Mr. North America. And he's plant-based. Now, you can't tell me that plant-based, you can't build muscles. There's lots of plant-based bodybuilders. So that's a myth. That is totally unproven. Well, his partner is more keto carnivore. But they genetically, they have a test that you can go get, and he is more adapted for plants and his partner is more adapted for meat. So again, there's not one size fits all for everybody. And people have to do what works for them. But what I found is that when you, just like a workout, if you change your workout, you stimulate and you grow. So if you change your diet, you're going to stimulate and grow too. If you give your body variances over time, it changes. Like the reason why people become vegan is because usually the primary reason, I mean, there are some that are for the animals, I get that. But the majority of reasons that people become vegan when they weren't born or raised vegan is because they don't feel good when they eat. And so if you change your complete eating style, you're going to feel good for a couple of years. There's no doubt about that. But like anything else, your body's going to habituate it. If you do that same movement over and over again, eventually your body stops growing from the movement. It's no different than with food. So I recommend that people have variety. I recommend that they try different things. If you're a carnivore and you eat plant-based for a week and then go back, see what happens. I recommend that people change. They give experience because contrast is what the body performs with. What we have this habit in our lifestyles and our bodies of wanting to have regularity. I mean, we want like things to be the same every day. Why? Because that's easier on our nervous system initially. Because if I eat the same thing at the same time, my body's prepared for it. Like if I'm eating the same thing every day, my body at that time is already producing the enzymes for that thing. So it's habituated. One of the things that's interesting that we tried during our fasting state when we were playing around with this during the pandemic is we tried to spit fast. So we chewed food, we spit it out. We didn't swallow it, and you could literally feel the organs working in your body because it to the body, to the brain, it was getting the food, it was sending all the signals. It was habitually doing what it normally does. It was a bizarre experience. We did it for 3 days.
And how was that?
It was like eating. Yeah. But there was no waste to go along with it. Look at this. The Greeks, they had vomitoriums by their dining rooms. Vomitorium is where you vomit. They had, literally. So what is a vomitorium? That means that they were eating and vomiting. Food is a drug, like anything else. And I think at that site, there's no real evidence around this other than conjecture because there's no real documentation. This is just the way they live their lives. But if you think about it from that perspective, if you eat the food, your brain, your body and your brain is already signaling everything, all the nutrients, like when you take a homeopathic or you put something in your mouth, or if you've been around drugs and you touch drugs and you get a contact high. These are all things that happen. Your body is the intelligence. It's absorbing all the time. Have you seen that video, any of the videos where, and people should actually go look at this, go on TikTok or something and put down chlorine absorbed through the body. So they take 2 glasses of water. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that?
No.
They take 2 glasses of water out of the tap. They put chlorine drops in one, it goes yellow. They put their hand in the other one for 15 seconds. They pull it out, they put their drops in there, there's no chlorine in the water anymore. It means that your skin absorbed all of that chemicals in 15 seconds. So, like I do some things to keep myself healthy. Some of the things I do, like for California example, is that I have an inline shower filter that I take and I put on every shower, even when I'm in a hotel. And hotel's a little tougher, so I actually carry wrenches in my suitcase. Because these chemicals, right now it's a death by 1,000 cuts. Chemicals in your water, chemicals in your air, chemicals in your clothes. Like the PAFs, which everybody knows are super harmful to us right now. You put in a pair of clothing, like let's say yoga pants. In the women's crotch area of the yoga pants, it has extremely high PAFs, like extremely high. These things are endocrine disruptors. They're causing hormonal imbalances. And it's no wonder that breast cancer is 1 and 2 right now. Like we have this constant assault on us everywhere. It's all part of our life. So part of it is my journey has been to go back to a natural way of living, but still exist in the world that we live in. Because you can go, like we were talking about it in the cars, you can get a little too freaky and then try to push away the world. But like you were saying earlier, it's like there is a resistance. If I'm hypersensitive and say, no, everything's bad, I'm going to be hurt by it. Well, then it's also going to hurt me when I'm exposed to it. So there's a balance between doing everything that's right for your body and being tolerant at the same time. And everybody has to find their balance. Like I'm gonna be more tolerant living in the country or by the ocean, getting the ocean every day. I'm gonna have more capacity than someone who lives in a city constantly bombarded by chemicals, by Wi-Fi, by signals, by electricity, by dirt, by noise. All those are pollutions. So it's to do the best that you can in the space that you can, and some of the little things that we don't think about. Cutting on plastic boards and getting microplastics. It's said that a person consumes a credit card every year worth of plastic and microplastics, and we have all these things that are causing problems that our bodies has to deal with. And if we reduce them at a capacity, a little bit at a time, over time, then eventually you just have more capacity to heal, perform, and live your life.
How do you explain, like, all these Olympic athletes? Like, every soccer player drinks out of plastic.
Yeah, I mean,
every athlete.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
I've never seen a glass bottle in like.
How many Olympic athletes are healthy in their 60s and 70s?
I don't know.
I mean, this is something. Okay, so I grew up in the time of bodybuilding. Bodybuilding was one of the interesting things because in the 80s, there was I was in a town of 600,000 people and there was one gym. Nobody would bodybuild. Zero. There's a few of us. We were the weirdos. And today, there's a gym at every corner. Everybody's going to it. Right? And we're not healthier today than we were back then. There's not even in any measurement are we. So we have the effects. Bodybuilding was one of those things, or building muscle is one of those things where you can take a look at the bodybuilders or the people that build a lot of muscle. And again, there's exceptions to every rule because somebody's going to point out 10 people that are very healthy. And it's not about just muscle, but it's about a lifestyle. And if you take a look at the successful, well-known people who built muscle back in the 70s and 80s, look at them today. Is there any of them that look healthy? Are there any of them that function? Like they're dead or broken for the most part. And again, there's exceptions to everything, and there's a lot of factors that go into this. But it's normally when you apply a physical action to the body, you'll see it in a generation or two. But this is one of those things where we can look at and go, wow, that didn't work very well because those people aren't healthy. And quite frankly, we did subclinical testing at the gym or in the clinic. And the people that looked ripped, their organs and the function of their organs were the least healthy. And I'll give you the difference between clinical and subclinical. So clinical testing, let's say blood. Blood is like a speedometer. It's how fast your car is going. So I could be going 60, you could be going 60. But that's only one measurement. The odometer, how hard is or tachometer, how hard is your engine working? So if my engine's at 6,000 RPM and I'm going 60, and yours is at 3,000 RPM and going 60, we're going to look very different over time. And so what we were doing is measuring the how hard the organs were working to maintain that blood perspective. And so we go and look at a blood report and we say, I'm all good. But people will go and they're all good in their blood all the way through their life. And then all of a sudden, at 55 or 60, they got osteoporosis. Well, how did that happen? Like their blood test last year was good. This year they have osteopenia, osteoporosis. Like, how is that physically possible that you got it in a year? You didn't. Your blood is meant to regulate. It pulls, your blood stays normal. It does anything to stay normal. So in other words, in that particular case, your blood will often steal calcium from your bones over years until one day it hit a point and your body can't manage it anymore, and you show the markers for osteoporosis or osteopenia. That means it didn't happen overnight. It happened over 20 or 30 years. You just weren't aware of it. Because we're measuring things that are meant to stay static. Like your blood is meant to be within these ranges, and your body works very hard to keep it there. So when you look at the body, this is why functional medicine started coming up, because they were looking at different components. They're looking at how hard is your body working? What do your hormones look like, not just in the blood? What does your tissue look like? They're looking at different factors to try and build a more complete picture, because the picture we were using doesn't work. And ironically, 90% of the population or greater still uses that same picture, which is we go get a blood test, the doctor says we're okay. But we're okay until one day we're not.
So do you want to be ripped or no?
No. I mean, I look lean. I look muscular. Fuscular, I guess. I am healthy. I have infinite amounts of energy.
Do you drink coffee?
No.
Matcha?
Sometimes, depends who I'm with, but generally no.
Wow.
Yeah, I've reduced.
And do you miss having muscles?
I enjoy the way
Especially
I feel.
being a bodybuilder for so long, no?
I enjoy the way I feel.
Yeah.
Like I'm 56,
Yeah.
and I enjoy the way I feel. And most people look at me and say, "Do you work out?" So I still get that.
Yeah.
But I'm lighter. I'm easier. I bound upstairs like I'm a gazelle. So it's a different way. Like I was only concerned about the way I looked for a lot of years. And sometimes I looked a certain way, but didn't feel very good. And again, if you're 25 or 35, or maybe even close to 40, you may not be hearing me at this point. But when people get into their 50s and 60s, which I was a clinical practitioner working with people, I could see that the ones who look good and felt good in their 30s didn't look good and feel good in their 50s and 60s. And so for me, I switched it from the way I looked to the way I felt. And then over a long time, well, not that long, over 5 years of feeling good every day, I started to look good again every day. And for those that have been watching me, you can just go back and look at the videos. I look infinitely younger than I did 5-6 years ago. Infinitely.
Yeah. What about sauna?
I love sauna. I love cold plunges. I know you do cold all the time. Yeah, those things are good. Those are contrast, by the way, sauna and cold. Contrast. If you give your body contrast, it responds. But yeah, all those things are great. You even go back to cultures like the Norwegians, right? Where they sweat all the time. Some of the healthiest people in the world, just generally. Sauna is really good. It reduces toxin in the body. Cold plunges, the contrast are really good. I love anything because those are emulating nature too.
Yeah, because when you say like everything is water, we're mostly water, we're supposed to be. Also, getting the water out like feels really satisfying.
Yeah.
Because then I guess I can replenish, and like sweating. I feel most people don't sweat enough.
They don't.
Yeah.
And here's what's interesting. People may be able to relate to this. Like when you go if you live up here in a fairly dry climate, and then you go to, let's say, Florida, or a lot of times people start to sweat and they get angry or frustrated when they get too hot. Yeah. That angry and frustrated, those are the toxins that are coming out. But I'm serious, because when I first moved to Cancun,
You were angry and frustrated.
Yeah, well, but when it would get really hot, I'd get,
Yeah.
I feel myself getting a little frustrated. And this is still early in my, by midway through my transformation, and I would get hot, and I would feel a little bit agitated when I got hot. Today, even in Cancun, I barely sweat. Because my body's constantly moving the water, and I'm also in water. I'm also in water every day as well. So I bath. I bath when I'm working. I bath at least twice a day.
Wow.
And sometimes 3 times a day. Because as I'm doing this, as I'm working with people, I'm releasing. There's a lot of emotion, and those emotions release hormones, which release toxins. And for me, I would just leave the bath. I'd set up in the morning. I would leave the bath throughout the day with all of the minerals in it, and I just get in the bath. And I don't bath for long. I'll get in for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let it soak and absorb, and then get out.
That's like a detox for working with so many people.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm working with somebody, and they start processing emotion or fear, like you can actually sometimes smell it on my body, like literally, I'm not even sweating yet, and then all of a sudden you can smell it. This happens a lot around the people that are working with fascia like this. Because if you're releasing an emotion, like if you walk in the room and you're angry, people can feel you're angry. Well, that feeling of angry is my anger meeting your anger. And that is a chemical reaction in the body. That chemical reaction in the body causes toxic.
So you sync up in a bad way, kind of.
We're always syncing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think about it in an environment like you go into a club, and there's music moving. People are moving to a beat. So you have a beat that everybody's responding to. So that syncs you. That's part of the energy. But then you have movement. But then you also have people's breath. These are all things that indicate, like when I breathe and when I sweat, and there's also the energetic component. The physical energy around me changes. It's measurable. You can measure it with equipment. So all of those things impact. Like when I come into your field will change or modify. Our fields together will change and modify. And you can actually look at that in photonic scanners. You can look at it with Carillion photography. So when we come together, our energies blend. And there's a choice, though, that when that happens is that I can meet your energy, you can meet my energy, or we can meet in between, but we do blend.
When people come to you, you said you're doing the baths because you sync up and you feel their emotions, and they almost stick to your body. Is that what you said?
Well, I think it's more correct to say that if you have anger, the anger that's in me comes up to meet it.
Okay.
It's not. One of the things that you'll hear people say is, I got to get away from these people. I got to protect my energy. You don't protect your energy. You either let it flow or you meet them. And letting it flow is very different. You're moving it through you. And this is where, in the clinic in the early days, I used to go home and I'd be angry at the end of the day, and I didn't know why. And if somebody said something to me, I would snap. And I didn't understand that I was absorbing emotions, because I wasn't on the energetic side. I was really on the physical side at that point. And I just knew that I knew there were certain rules, like I wouldn't do any business after I'd started a treatment. So all my business had to be done in the early part of the day, because I was emotionally processing, and sometimes I would make bad decisions. And I knew that after work I needed an hour of basically not talking, of no interactions other than very small social interactions, so that I could be okay. These are just things that I'd noticed, but I didn't realize why. I just was angry or frustrated or releasing. So when I get in a bath, it automatically drops it off, or better yet, in an ocean or a body of water.
Is that where we're supposed to live? Close to an ocean?
Well,
Or for you personally?
I like ocean.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have a place in the mountains too, and go to mountain lakes. But a body of water is going to decompress you. It's going to let the toxins out. You know how you get in water and if you sit in a bath too long, you get wrinkly? And then you get out and all of a sudden within, like 5 to 10 minutes, you're not wrinkly anymore. Well, think about it this way. There's a layer of toxins that's waiting to excrete itself through sweat or something. When you get in water, your fascia in your body relax and they let that toxin out. And that's why you get wrinkly, because there's a layer that has to fill itself back up. You get out, that layer pumps back up again and pushes fluids again to the surface. By the way, I don't get wrinkly when I'm in water anymore.
Never?
I stay in water for a long period of time. I just don't get wrinkly. Now, that's a new one. That didn't happen 2 or 3 years ago, but it's today.
Sometimes when my partner feels pain, I can feel that pain just because you sync up like that. Like when or just talking about it over and over, your mind almost like makes it up. And you like absorb. I can feel it mostly, I guess, with my wife, where when we talk enough about like, I don't know, back pain, before you know it, you also have back pain, kind of, or your ankle hurts, and then before you know it, your ankle hurts too.
Our bodies are bioresonant, bioharmonic, so and bioacoustic. So we resonate, we harmonize, and through acoustics, and you're emitting a signal. So a lot of people are not able to feel that signal. Why? Because there's too much distraction in their nervous system. That just simply means that your nervous system is calm. You take care of yourself and you can feel what's going on in the world around you. And there are certain people that are more easily meant to feel, and certain people that don't feel a lot. But generally, when your body is calm inside and your stress is low, you're going to feel people around you more.
And then how do you like positively influence your partner or your family and not let them get your, like what you said, when somebody's angry, you just get up to that anger level?
So when I'm in situations like that, number one is holding your frequency. And at first it takes a while. It's like practicing anything else.
Yeah.
To hold my frequency, one of the things I do, I've been in many situations where there's a lot of tension going on. I'll scoot out to the bathroom. I'll do our fascial organ reset. That'll neutralize my body. Like for those who haven't tried it, the fascial organ reset, it works very much like acupuncture, but you're doing it yourself. It takes 7 to 10 minutes. And it's about 70% of what an acupuncture treatment would do for you. It's calming the nervous system, rebalancing things. So I'll rebalance myself when I'm going into a situation that's tough. Or if I've been in a situation where it's like that, I'll step away for a few minutes, rebalance myself, and go back in. So because I'm bringing a better vibration, a better harmonization to that environment. Today, I can pretty much hold my frequency anywhere. So if people are angry or frustrated, it goes through me. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't stick. But even today, sometimes when things get too heated, I just step away for a minute, do a couple fascial maneuvers, because they rebalance the emotions in the nervous system. In the first 7 to 10 minutes of doing a maneuver, your 75 to 90% of your stress is gone. And you can feel it. It's visceral. You can test it if you wanted to test it with a hormone swab test or something like that. But that is a way. Take down your stress and then go back into the environment. Because you can't change people. But you can change yourself. And as you change yourself, the people around you have to resonate differently.
I know that is always the most powerful approach, is to look within or change yourself. If you want to change your environment, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Are we meant to live in cities?
We're meant to live in community.
Yeah.
What we call a city today isn't very healthy.
It's not very community oriented, kind of. Well, everybody is so isolated in their little box.
Okay, that's today.
Yeah.
I'm 56.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up at the last part of the generation where all the mothers in the neighborhood, knew who I was. They knew my grades. They knew if I ate or not. They would discipline me if I needed it. So I grew up in a village, but I grew up in a town, a city, 600,000 people when I was a young kid. But everybody was still community-based. Today, we live amongst people, but we are very apart and separate. That's social programming. That has nothing to do, that's how we've been taught. We've been taught to fear people, to isolate from people, to protect ourselves. These are all messages that have been given over the last 3 generations. But if you go back 3 generations, it wasn't like that. People that lived in cities, lived in community. And if you live in community, the body heals in community. Just like we go in a room and somebody's angry and you feel angry. Well, when we are together, we blend our energy. And if the intent of that is, like if you go way back, people would go to the fire at the end of the day and they would eat, they would dance, they would sing, and they would actually remove the negative energy from them through movement and through communion. Today, we don't have that. We're all isolated. But you can see the social dysfunction. It's very evident. Societies are breaking down. People are breaking down. It's gotten to this insane point where you can't even talk to somebody else's kid or talk to somebody else without them freaking out. We're at a crisis point. There's no doubt about it. So cities, the question is, were we meant to live in cities? Whether you're in a city or you're in a town, we're meant to live in community, but not necessarily. It's not, city doesn't mean community.
And that community, like, what about like family?
Family's an interesting one because you don't always resonate with your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
sometimes your family is brings so much pain, and you like sync up on the pain more than like what you said when everybody dances and sings together. It like you release all that negative energy. It's like the opposite almost sometimes for a lot of people.
Think about it a different way. If people are on a spiritual path, your family was meant that you were born into a family, not randomly. It's not just a biology, a sperm and egg hit, and you're in a meat suit. We picked our family and our parents. That's the way even the indigenous cultures would say, you pick your parents, you even tell them your name. And that's why a lot of mothers can relate to this. They heard the name of their child. It was somehow, and you hear this over and over and over again. So the family that we have are meant to teach us, but so are the people around us. And I follow astrology. And I use astrology. I know at least the birthday of every single person that interacts with me, including a waiter or waitress. I ask everybody. And it's been this bizarre and fun experiment that I've been doing for about 6 years. And what I'm starting to see is the patterns. In other words, if I go to other places, I have the same types of people starting to come around me, like the same astrologies or same birthdays. And I'm like, what are the chances that actually happens? I go to a complete new city, within a couple hours, I have all of the people around me that are coming up, whether they're delivering to the door, whether they're helping out, whether there's somebody that's there working with us. And I find that I have the very similar types of people, archetypes around me. So I believe that the families there are meant to teach us something. And whether we choose to learn or not is different. And sometimes they're there to teach us to move away. I mean, not every lesson is to be resolved. Some of it's just to create a boundary and move away. I resonate strongly with the people I'm with, more so than I did with a lot of my family. And so I believe that we are born into a family to find our family. And our families are this is, by the way, this is what's happening in the age of Aquarius. This is what's happening right now, is we're finding our tribes. We're finding the people that we resonate with. And it's happening. You can see it happening around. People are starting to get together or work together, find other people. And over the last 2 to 3 years, anybody listening to this would be able to relate. People have been divorcing, breaking up, leaving family, finding new friends, and at a rate that we used to have the same friends, same people forever. But that's not the way it seems to work anymore. And I believe that's actually the way the way that we're supposed to live. We're supposed to find the community we resonate with, because I'm in harmony. The more time I stay in harmony, like we resonate on a lot of things. So like when we get together and we talk, it's a good feeling. There's positive energy. Well, the more time I spend in that energy, the better I am as a human being. The more time I spend agitated about something, then the more I have to recover from it. Now, again, I'm at a point where I've just learned to accept over time the things that I don't like particularly, and learned even furthermore to find appreciation in those things. But it doesn't mean I have to spend my time there. I don't have to exercise a lot of time in an environment or with people that I don't want, that I don't resonate with. I tend to spend more time with people I resonate and just less time with people I don't resonate. Doesn't mean like X, they're gone and I'm never going to talk to them again, but I'm just going to spend more time where I feel good.
Is that the law of attraction?
Yeah, you can call that the law of attraction. We attract everything. And if we also attract the experiences that we don't think we want. Well, it's like if I'm having a bad day.
The suffering.
Yeah, the pain. Yeah, if I'm having a bad day and I'm in my head about it, things just continue to get worse.
Yeah, always.
And if I'm having a good day, things continue to get better. So yeah, we do attract to us. And, I generally feel that people are starting to accept that as a norm. But if we said that 20 years ago or 10 years ago, most people generally didn't have that belief system. But today, I feel that people are starting to turn that corner and have this belief system that that's the way it is.
Are you into like manifestation?
We manifest everything. Again, look around. If you don't like what you got, you manifested that. Because if I change my perception, let's talk about it from a biological point of view. Okay. You have a reticular activating lobe. There are billions of bits of information out there. You buy a red car. All of a sudden, you see all the red cars on the road. You get a jacket. All of a sudden, you see that jacket amongst other people. That's your reticular activating lobe saying, okay, that's important. So I'm going to, out of all the information out there, I'm going to find things that are important or relevant to me. So when we set an intention, we start to look towards that intention. And in other words, we find our way to the things that we want. That's manifestation from a biological point of view. When I say something, my reticular activating lobe in the brain lights up, and then it starts to find or seeks to make whatever I'm saying or looking for true. So the words that I speak are really important because my words make up the net sum of what I see. You have two people in a restaurant. One person's having, everything's going wrong in their life. You have another person right beside them at a table, and one person, everything's going right in their life. They're in the same physical location. And they're in the same city. So what makes one different than the other? Is that luck? I don't think so. Because we've been taught, anywhere from Anthony Robbins all the way through, that if we choose something and we speak it and we say it and we look for it, we find it. But if I am just ignorant to that fact that I'm manifesting, and I think that everything that's bad or anything that's painful, that I'm a victim of it. But if I say I manifest everything, that means that everything that comes into my life, I'm responsible for. And if I do that, I'm no longer a victim. And if I'm no longer a victim, then I can change that. I can change what I look for and what I attract.
It's a life of full responsibility.
I know you live that life. Yeah, full responsibility. Yeah, if I'm not responsible, then everything in life seems like it happens to me. If I'm responsible, it happens for me. Very, very different.
Sometimes it's hard to explain. Like I've made like peace with myself, but it's hard to explain to somebody else who is very unresponsible or a victim of themselves, of their thoughts and their negative like voice in their head. It's hard to, because like most of, or like always, I guess you can't really help them. You can only like act as a role model, and you can show them like what works for you, but in the end it's up to them to change. You cannot like hammer this like responsibility into them, kind of.
Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So you can't tell anybody anything. The other word that we took out of our language a long time ago is empower people. You can't, if you're empowering people, it means you have more power than them. You can inspire people, is what you just said.
Yeah, but you have to empower yourself.
You empower yourself, and then you inspire people.
Yeah.
And that's what you were saying. You can just live your life.
I struggle with not being able to empower people, I guess. Or like, I wish I could. Yeah, or like, I don't know.
Well, do you struggle with it?
Yeah. Or it's pain. It gives me pain to watch somebody be a victim of themselves or their thoughts or their beliefs.
It used to give me pain.
Yeah. People that you love,
oh, listen, that's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah. Because like, for me, yeah, you can make peace with yourself, but to watch somebody be in pain that you love is hard. And not being able to like help them right away or
I've got a little bit more time under my belt on this one.
Yeah.
And I continue to live my life and change myself. And the people around me seem to get better.
Yeah.
I used to want to tell people, like COVID came and everybody wanted to tell everybody what to do or what not to do. They had their opinion, whether it was wear a mask, don't wear a mask. And they would get angry when people didn't listen to them. It was the ultimate show of how people try to force their belief systems on other people. The way that, in my particular life, I have learned to just live my life. And through time, I show results. I mean, I even get it today. There's things that I do for my health and well-being that people look at for, even with my own community. Within, they'll look at me for a year and a half before they try something that I'm doing. But what happens is over time, the results show and they start to lead towards it. But if I tell them, hey, do this over and over again, it pushes them away further. So it's better just to inspire people. Just live your life, be an inspiration, remove the judgment. And that's the hard one, because the judgment is, I'm right, they're wrong. In their particular life, they're learning a lesson. If they're a victim, they need to learn a lesson until they decide not to be one. Me telling them that they're a victim is just going to make them resist it even more. So just letting them live their life and keep inspiring without rubbing it in their face, because that's the other thing that people do. They're like, see, look at me. Look at how good I'm doing. Look at all this. I learned just to do it. Just to do it and be it. And if I do it and I be it, people eventually want to be like me. Or they want to or they want to have certain aspects like me. And that's where we impact the world in a bigger way. Telling somebody to do something isn't going to work. I mean, we've been doing this for centuries and it does not work.
What about when you're so responsible that if me and my wife, I take so much responsibility that sometimes I feel like it's counterproductive, because she just leans on me taking responsibility for everything, for like every single thing. Where I'm like I wish she was more, she would be more responsible. But since I take responsibility,
she's a Gemini.
Yeah, since I take responsibility for every this
you're,
morning.
You're a Leo. She's a Gemini, right?
Yeah. So there's the phone. We have a phone charger, and she put the phone in the phone charger. And normally, before we sleep, we put the phones away. We have a station and they charge there. And then this morning, her phone isn't charged because she put it in, but she didn't connect the cable. And then since I'm like a full responsibility guy, I'm like, I should have done that. It's my responsibility. But now that backfires, because now she's just like, oh, he's doing anything anyway is kind of like, you know,
So if you take over the responsibility of doing something for somebody, then they just stop doing it themselves.
yes.
There's a balance in partnerships where you work, but you're Leo,
Yeah.
and she's a Gemini.
Yeah.
Geminis, they charge their phone. They're going out the door and they plug it in, they charge it for 3 minutes, and then they go out the door. That's just who they are. That's just how their brain works, and there's no sense trying to change that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can help her along the way a little bit, but at some point, when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, people change. So if I take away the pain of the actions or the lack of action that people take, then I take away their responsibility. So one of the things, because I like to do the same thing, I like to help people, and I've learned this a lot through working with people in their bodies, is that if I do too much and I take away their pain, this is why I stopped being a practitioner, because people would live their life, they would create all this dysfunction, which would land them in my clinic. And then I would take away that pain from all that life that they lived. But then they would go back to that same life. They'd be back in 2 years. And this is why I stopped being a practitioner, because I would rather show you how to incrementally help yourself. And it took me a while to get there, but if you incrementally help yourself, and you become responsible for your own well-being, over time, you're going to be better. But if I keep taking away the pain for you, then nothing's going to help. Now, in your particular situation, you have a partner.
Exactly it. That's exactly what I tried to say.
Yeah.
That I struggle with taking the pain away from my children and my wife.
Well, you've used the word struggle 3 times. So are you struggling? Think about the word.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been doing this, but struggling is an act where you're setting yourself up for more pain.
Okay.
So that's informing your nervous system and your reticular activating system to go for a struggle. And you're programming yourself to be in that struggle. You could use other words, which you could say, I'm learning to help them be more responsible. I'm creating a balance to help them be more responsible in our relationship, because you have your responsibility, they have their responsibility. If you take away everything, then it becomes loaded on you. And listen, I've had 13 businesses. I've been on the board of roughly 100 companies. I've had 20,000 employees. And what I've learned over time in my life is that if I remove the pain from people, eventually it comes back and hurts me. Yeah. But there is a balance. Like if I'm going to go somewhere and I need that person to have their phone charged, I might tell them, hey, make sure your phone's charged. Is it charging? I might program them. I might push them a little bit, because at that point it might cause pain for me directly. Like all of a sudden their phone's dead and I need to call them. So there's a balance to how much you do. And instead of struggling, reprogram it. I'm working on creating more balance. I'm working on this situation. Because if you're struggling with it, you are going to create a struggle. Like if you go lift a weight and you say, man, I don't know if I can do this. This is going to be tough. This is going to be hard. I've struggled trying to get past this. You don't do that when you're trying to positively perform. I know. Yeah. But in a weak spot.
Yeah, I never struggle at the gym.
Right.
Yeah, that is not,
No, you don't allow that.
No. Because you'll just fail and try again, fail, try again. But you don't struggle.
Struggle?
There's no struggle.
That's right, because you allow the failure, because the failure is part of the success.
Yeah. And in the gym, it's so simple because you need to fail.
Yeah.
It's set up for failure. That's the whole point.
Relationships are no different.
Yeah.
But
you need to fail.
But the word that you use programs your nervous system to seek a behavior.
Yeah.
So instead of struggling, words are funny, because words define the context in which I see the world.
Yeah. Especially when it's not some words might have a significance, but since it's not my mother language, it is not as heavy.
Correct.
As maybe for somebody else.
Yeah, that is true. But words do have a frequency.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, our nervous system is actually absorbing a word, so it's a frequency at the end. Because if you take words like words like love and care and stuff like that in multiple languages, and you put it on I think it's an oscilloscope, shows the frequency, you'll find that even in different languages, even though they sound completely different, they have the same resonant frequency for core words. So,
is there a specific way how you talk to yourself?
Yeah. I'm always watching the words that and it's a journey. You say good morning. I'm not morning anything. And that, so like I say buenos dias because I'm in Mexico a lot. Or sometimes I say good day, but I sound like an Australian when I do that. Because those words are programming. I mean, you also look at there's tough ones that are built into society, like weekdays.
Oh.
I'm a daze, D-A-Z-E, like a daze.
Yeah.
Well,
Week.
Yeah, but those words, even though you think they mean something, they have a frequency which is attached to something else. Like there was a time you can program your nervous system into believing things. Like I used to believe that cleaning with bleach, the smell of bleach walking into the bathroom meant it was clean.
Yeah.
Now I know that the smell of bleach walking into a bathroom is super caustic and is harmful to me. But my nervous system used to think it was clean, even though it wasn't. It was harmful to me. So the fluid adaptive biological computing system that we are, the computer that we are, we can tell it whatever we want. It's still not going to change the behavior. So words are super powerful, and words can either liberate us or limit us. And we can't see past the words that we use. And I'm guessing that most people listening to this have a belief that that's true, but don't yet have the experience of it.
Yeah, I made an experiment where I removed, I think, like tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you remove it, it's like magical because it's just, if you don't accept the word tired, then you don't feel it. You don't feel tired.
Correct.
You don't feel it.
So remove the word struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try that for a while and see what happens.
I think I needed to hear that.
Listen,
it's such a constant journey, and you get thrown back so many times. It's so like funny how you think you figured things out, and then you just like start all over.
It's constant journey. We're here to help each other. We reflect, and it's
not everybody.
yeah, not it. So it's been a journey for me, and it started off with taking chemicals out of my life. And first of all, I was already in a healthy lifestyle. I generally ate good. I worked out. I had a pretty healthy lifestyle from that comparison. Then I started taking chemicals out of my life. When I took chemicals out of my life, I became more aware of my environment. So everything from the things around me to the words I use, because chemicals occupy your nervous system. And when you have chemicals in, your nervous system's busy dealing with chemicals. You see less, hear less, understand and absorb less. Then after you take the chemicals out over a while, then what I started noticing is that I wanted to accelerate my positive behaviors and reduce the negative ones. And then after a while of doing that, I noticed that I wanted to change the words that I used because I was aware that the words I was using were limiting me. And like you said, tired. Those are all things. And
even just saying it,
it's hard to say it.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
It really makes you feel tired if you say it enough, kind of.
Yeah.
So to remove it is... Also, I removed like depressed and anxiety because that's like everywhere on social media. People are obsessed about being depressed and talking about depression and I just switched it into like instead of feeling anxious, I feel like excited. I feel
there's
excitement
a point
coming up. Like I feel excited about a situation or like
Let me tell you something that's biologically true.
Okay.
Anxiousness and excitement are the same chemical profile in your body.
Yeah.
Your perception tells you which one. Another one is like sadness and joy. That's why you cry when you're joyful and you cry when you're sad.
Yeah.
It's the same chemical release. But your body, your perception chooses which one that it wants to habituate or bring in. And anger or compassion, confidence or fear. And so this is why a lot of times people will feel anxious when they're going to go do something that's fun or exciting.
Yeah, like kiss somebody for the first time, or
Right.
or have a test, or even when I have a workout and it scares me how I'm gonna feel, how I'm gonna perform. I feel anxious, but that is so like overloaded and overused that I wanna feel anxious though. I love the anxiety in front of a workout. Like it loads me up, it makes me feel like tingly and excited, and like I wanna feel anxiety. So I changed the word into excitement. And the same thing with depression. When I feel depressed, I don't feel depressed, I feel sad. And sometimes we want to feel sad, and sometimes it's good to feel sad, or we want to watch a sad movie, or that is okay too. But like the depression is such a like a end of the like thing, kind of you can't get out of it, you need help kind of statement. So words change everything.
They do.
Yeah.
The words change everything. And you've just pointed it out. So that's why watching words changes the way my behavior goes.
Yeah.
And my body, remember the reticular activating system in the body, the lobe in the brain, when you speak, it lights up 100%. And you can actually look at it on an MRI, and it will light up when you speak. And it's seeking to understand what you're saying and then find that in the world.
So do we need to be in silence? Do we need to
I get this all the
stop?
time.
Because this is a constant. I feel like everybody constantly distracts themselves. It's so much distraction. The movies, the social media, the music, the podcast. I mean, there's so much distraction.
We need to shut distraction off, because distraction occupies our nervous system. But to be in silence is kind of a different thing. We do need to reduce input at times. But to be in silence, like, for example, meditating. I practiced meditating for a couple of years. I've tried it multiple times through my life. I could do it, but shutting down my brain just doesn't work for me. So what I do is I do movement. And fascial maneuvers is a meditation for me. And that calms me down, calms my brain. Because your brain is just responding to all the activity in the body. And if your body is producing less stress, less problems, and it's balanced off its emotions, then your brain calms down. So for me, I would sit there, try to overpower my body by shutting off my brain. It works. But I have found that for me in particular, moving my body will shut down my brain and create more silence.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Like I can work out in silence and move in silence, or hike in silence, and I enjoy that with no music, no podcast, no phone, especially with no phone. We've started doing particular times where we leave the phones.
At home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference. Suddenly you're really there. Suddenly you're really just out there. You're just doing it. And you see all these, and then you see it everywhere. You see everybody's neck. You see everybody on their hand, their phone. You're not really hiking, are you? Like, you're not really experience like the human experience.
Right.
Yeah. And when we leave the phones home, every time it's like, and you can do brain scans on that too. Everything changes in your brain when you just walk a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walking, movement is life.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying earlier, the origin of all movement is breath. So the better we move, the better we live. The worse we move, the worse we live.
That's maybe why in Japan you feel so good too, because you just constantly walk.
Yeah, Japan is great. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're walking everywhere.
Yeah.
People, if you go back even like 50 years ago, an American walked 7 to 10 miles a day. Today, we're into the thousands of steps. And some people not even that. Okay,
What about lifting weights? Is it bad for me to keep up?
So let me
to keep up this physique? Is it?
No, I'm not. Let me just give you an example, and I'll let you make a decision. Okay. When we restrict a body part, we lose part of the movement. Movement is life. Okay. So take your hand, go like this. Give your top range of movement. Find out how far you can go back. Okay. Now grip like this, hard, and then restrict your movement, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So here's what I've learned. Being a mechanics expert, working with the top Olympic athletes or professional athletes in the world, here's what I've learned. When you restrict movement, you restrict your body's ability to adapt to an environment. And when you grab something like this and you move it, you're actually creating restrictions, which I did because I could barely touch certain things in my body.
I can barely do this.
Yeah. And, I can do this and over like a yogi now. So what I've experienced in my own life is the broader my range of motions, because my body's the computer, my brain is the processor. So my computer, if it stops moving in a certain direction, in any direction, the body has to compensate. My experience is compensated. So what I've tended to do, one of the things is if you look at the strongest men in the world, like over the years, it's always been the big Norwegians or the Swedes. They grab bales of hay and they move around. Because in life, we don't really grab a bar very often. If we are, it's a tree, and it's not really a bar. But I've noticed that as I've taken and broadened my movement process and things that I pick up, they're more natural. I find that I move better. And as I move better, my nervous system's calmer, my head's clearer, I have better health. And so that was one of the things that I learned this a long time ago. Like in the early days of my clinic, I noticed that if I took an athlete and I took away their barbells and, at worst, like just a kettlebell, or I got them picking up bags of sand and moving and stuff like that. I noticed that their overall performance was better. And I noticed also that their mental and emotional performance was better over time. So you can choose how you work out. I think movement is important, and I like pushing myself. This last year, since I did the podcast with you about a year ago, I've been on the road. So every 2 weeks, normally I like to be in nature. I like to climb, not climbing but I like over boulders and through terrain and stuff like that. When I do that, I feel absolutely fantastic. Like I light up. And that's what I like to do. And that's what I'm planning on going back to. I've done less of that because of the schedule. But that's what really lights me up. At the end of that, I feel invigorated. I feel calm. I feel able to process. I start to connect to my higher thoughts and able to bring information down, like things that were stuck or ideas. And so I really encourage movement of any kind. And I just say to people, do more natural movement, less mechanical movement.
Could it also be like the carnivore and the vegan, that like just different body types need different stimulus?
Yeah, you need different stimulus, but if you reduce motion, you're going to, over time, as you reduce motion, as you get older, it's going to restrict more and more movement. And I mean, you can just look at that, anybody over time. If you restrict the one thing, even on the blue zones that people have been talking about, the one thing that you can attribute to the people who live the longest, have the best quality of life, are the ones that move. And they're not lifting weights, they're moving their bodies. So movement is important. And over time, if I restrict movement, again, at 30 years old, it's very different than when you're at 50 or 60 years old. And I've been able to watch it in people over the years, fixing them. But then I'm also at 56 now, starting to be in that living. I move better today than I did when I was 18. I'm stronger today than when I was a bodybuilder. In different ways of strength. Like I'm not going to lift a barbell, but like I said, I can put you over my shoulders and walk or run up a hill. I couldn't do that when I was bodybuilding. I mean, the amount of load, the amount of energy that I would expend, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But today I can. So I'm incredibly strong today in a different way. And so this has been my experiment. So far, I'm like 6 years into this experiment. So we'll see what happens in 6 or 10 more years. But so far, it's been every marker that I can look at has been moving in the right direction.
Do you feel pressure with like leading, as in like when you're in this health space? Like, is there like pressure to like be this healthy person?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, when I started off in this space, because I'd stopped my clinic, it was very unhealthy. I got really fat. If you look at the old videos, I was fat. So
I've seen those photos.
Yeah, and I used to
chunky.
People would
in your face too.
Yeah. They would say, like we're getting like millions and tens of millions of views on videos, and then you have like hundreds of thousands of comments like, "You're fat. You can't do this. You're fat." I'm like, just wait and see. I'm doing something. What I did is I stopped worrying about my weight. I stopped worrying about what people thought, and I went after my belief system. Like when I was training bodybuilders, like to compete, and when I would help a bodybuilder, the first thing I do is I take away their scale when they're dieting. Because if they look at that scale, they're going to blow it, and they're going to miss their weight, and they're not going to come in right. Because you get them to concentrate on a specific action over time and don't measure it. Just do the action, believe and trust in the action. And it's the same way when I did this. I didn't care. I mean, there's times where I would read the comments and I had to talk myself off a fence. But I knew that long term, like when I was bodybuilding and I would bulk up, and people would say, "You're getting fat. You look fat." Listen. I'm like, but I was purposely doing that, and I have to listen to all the chatter from people and block it off, because I knew that I'm going to lean up, get cut and ripped, and then they're going to say, "Wow, you look so muscular." And people's opinions go up and down, so I don't acknowledge them. I just set my path and move towards it. I wasn't trying to do this for anybody else. I'm doing it for myself, and I don't care what other people think. Like I have a lot of people today. The war between carnivore and vegan. I mean, it's incredibly stupid, because each side is producing enough evidence, like flat Earth, round Earth. I mean, they're just yelling at each other, arguing that their way is the best way. There's enough ample evidence in the world that each way works. And it's the argument, it's, again, the judgment, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm going to argue this way. The amount of wear and tear on their nervous systems by having such a belief that's strong and arguing about it, that's what's hurting them. That's what's making them old. Just do your thing. Whatever your thing is, do your thing. Quit trying to push it on everybody else. I do my thing. I inspire people through my actions. I go back to weight. If eating plants is bad for you and you can't build muscle, then how did he win Mr. North America last year at 50 years old, eating plant-based diet? Like that just... I have too many examples of that where that is true. And you can look at him from every measure biologically. You can look at his health, his skin, his life, everything. He looks young, acts young. He doesn't look like he's 50. Now, that's a guy who is blowing up the myth that you have to be a carnivore to have muscle or to be healthy. But on the vegan side, the same thing. You get vegans that are completely unhealthy, right? And then you have some plant-based people that I'm in circles with that are unbelievably healthy. Yeah. And you can see it. So I'm going to say that the judgment of right or wrong is actually what's causing people to have the problem. So just do your thing, and that's what I'm doing. Do my thing and not worry about it. I'm not affected by what other people say, and that's how I've been able to do what I do in my life.
how much role do you think the mind plays in all of that? Like especially like let's say eating, right? When I think I'm eating the right thing, how much do you think
Quite a bit.
just you thinking this is good for me, or let's do the opposite, you forcing yourself to eat something that you don't want to eat, but you're eating it because they tell you it's healthy, but you don't want to eat it. Same with like the gym, like somebody that enjoys going there, or somebody that forces the exercise, forces to be on a treadmill, watching a movie like with headphones and hating every single minute of it. Like how effectful is that gonna be? Like I always like I feel like sometimes like I see people in the gym and there's no results, no change, no difference. They look always the same, no matter how hard they train, because they hate every single, and they signaling to their body like I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this. Instead of like somebody signaling like I love every movement, I love being here. Like how powerful is the mind?
The placebo, what you're talking about is basically a placebo.
Yeah.
So the placebo effect, if people look into the placebo effect, there's been 4.5 million studies thereabouts over 55 years, maybe 60 years now, because I've been using this stat for a long time. The studies adequately show that 1/3 of the time, whether it's the belief that the drug or the medication or the surgery is going to work, that is the only contributing factor to it working. But what people, they go to that and they only take that one piece of it without looking at the other pieces of those studies. 1/3 of the time, the negative belief is the only contributing factor to why it failed. Which, if you have 2/3 of the time, one is I believe and one is I don't believe, the other third, just statistically, is invalidated. It has a lot to do. Your belief systems and what you believe and what you enjoy, if you do things with joy, you will be successful in everything. And I'll give you something that impacted me, because this is clinical here. As a matter of fact, we're right by the person who I'm going to talk about. I had a lady come into the early stages of the garage when we were in a garage or in an apartment before we even got to a clinic. And we would do these subclinical lab panels, and they would show, like red, yellow, green. And when somebody was going to when they came in and they were going to have a test that looked really bad, I would warn them, because they would send the results directly to the person. And I'd say, you're going to get these results. When you get them, don't worry about it. There's going to be some red, and there's going to be some yellow in there. And we're going to work to make this all right. And she got her lab test back, and 100% was green, and she was overweight. I don't mean like obese, but overweight to you would just say that's not healthy, okay? I got the test, I called the lab and said, your equipment's wrong. And so what we did is we took, and it can happen in labs, you have to recalibrate equipment. So what we did is we took all 20 people that we tested that day and her, we brought them all back in, said all of the lab tests were wrong because the equipment was wrong. We retested everybody, and everybody came out identical to what they were the first time. And I looked at that and I said, how could that be? This person is unhealthy because they are overweight. And so this stuck with me for a while, and I'm like, okay, I have 2 lab tests independently coming in saying the same thing, and I ran a third one just to make sure. And so I had to come to terms, is being this weight unhealthy then? Because I thought that was unhealthy. So over time, I looked at her and said, what is different about this person? Like getting to know her, because we would spend 10 sessions, 2 hours, 20 hours with people. You get to know them. And what I noticed was she was genuinely the most happy person that I'd ever met. Now, I'm in LA, so a lot of people put on a happy face. Well, I saw her, I used to go to the Kabbalah Center. I saw her over the course of time. She was always happy. I saw her in times where I kept looking, like, this is my experiment. And I go on these mind trips. sometimes, and I will look how, and I literally force myself into situations to see if this person was that happy or not. Because I was trying to understand. And then I had another person and another third one came in. By the time I get 3 people that repeat something, I've usually made my opinion. I don't need 10,000 or I don't need 400 peer reviews. I'll look and I'll make my decision based on what I see. So I had a second person come in, the same thing, third person, the same thing. And the only thing I could determine out of that was their happiness outweighed all of their clinical and measurable results. And this is not a young person. This is someone in their 50s. So they'd been that weight for their entire life. So I was busting a myth that you had to be ripped or lean or you had to look this certain way. This look was what determined health. And it came down to the end of it, which is the way I felt about it was more important. And this is where my belief system started to change because I thought that health had a look to it. And I realized that emotional health is more important than physical health. If you're emotionally, you can be physically healthy because I had all these people coming in that were physically healthy, but their lab work showed that they were not healthy. And one thing I could tell is that the people that were obsessed with the physical health, obsessed with it, were sick because they were sick in their head about it, like I was. And I have a stronger belief now that the way I frame my lifestyle, like the setup, the way I talk about it, the way I act, the way I am emotionally, has a bigger impact. Like if you have a really emotionally draining situation, what do you feel afterwards? You feel tired, worn out. You feel like down from that a really heavy emotional situation. You feel beat up. And it could be no physical work, but your physical body feels tired. Emotions play a stronger role in our health than anything else. And people who are emotionally healthy are generally healthy in their bodies, even if their bodies don't look that way.
That really resonates. Nothing makes me more tired and exhaustion than like a family fight or fight with your loved one.
Yeah.
And I never feel tired after the gym, ever.
No.
The opposite, really.
Yeah.
The more I move, the more energy I get.
Mm-hmm.
But emotionally, nothing is more draining than arguing, insulting. No physical harm, only emotional harm that will ruin you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see this when people go through like a legal battle, an emotional battle, or they go through a trauma that they relive over and over again. That's what wears them out.
Yeah.
And you look at when a president goes into office. He goes into office and 4 years later, he looks like he aged 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So these are clear indicators, but we currently do not measure or have measurements. We have lots of measurements for physical health, but generally in society, we don't have emotional health measurements. And emotional health measurements so we have our physical rear brain, our emotions are our midbrain limbic region, and the front brain is our perception. So I find that the way I set up and perceive something impacts the way that my emotions fire. Like if somebody does something and I perceive it's bad and it's going to hurt me, well, then I'm going to have a certain amount of emotions like fear or anger that's going to generate, that's going to produce a biological response in the rear brain and the chemicals, hormones in my body that are going to be harmful to me. But if somebody does something and my perception, I know that even though that they did that, that was good for me, even if I didn't like it, and that was something I welcomed. That same action doesn't produce the biological response in the same way. Now that's how I frame it. And like what we say with fascia, we say that fascia is your perceptual organ. Fascia has this field around it. Our bodies have this field around it, which you can measure, biophotonic field. And in that field, when things come into that field, we perceive it. If we're not too caught in our bodies, we can perceive stuff. Like when somebody walks by, you turn right away, or somebody throws something and you catch it. Well, that's not your brain doing that. That's something interpreting information that's coming into your field that you're become aware of. You duck or something like that. People say it's a reflex, where it's not a reflex, because you have to be aware. You have to have a physical insult to have a reflex. You have to be aware of it in your brain. So we have this information that's coming around us, and that fascia, our fascia, is what I describe is the conduit between the field and the body. And when the fascia is really open, like mine, I have a greater sense of perception. So I perceive more, and then I can reframe more. So my perception says it's good or bad. If my perception says it's good, no matter what it is, it ends up being less impactful on my body than if I say it's bad. Because the body, I perceive it bad, then my body is going to resist it, which means more stress hormones, which really take us down and age us.
There's this story where somebody always complains and the other person always says good, or I'm like, hey Gary, I crashed my car, and you say good,
yeah,
good that you crashed your car,
yeah,
and I'm like, man, I'm fighting again with the wife, good,
it's good, it's teaching you a lesson.
yes,
Yeah.
good.
What are you learning from that?
That everything is perception.
Yeah, it is.
Happiness is perception, sadness is perception. It's all. So it's like it's just so funny that we wake up. You can call it like the devil or evil, or you're just like this like jealous being that wants what they can't have, and you have to like constantly humble and teach yourself. It's like a journey of humbling and changing your perception of life.
That is the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my perception takes something from I'm a victim to that's being done to me rather than that's being done for me. Yeah. So we went to emotions as being the regulator of health. Well, what regulates my emotions is my perception. So I do an example. It's been up on our social media sometimes, where I put my elbow into somebody's leg, and I create pain for them, and I show them if they touch it and they give it attention, the pain drops. They take it away, the pain goes up. Touch it again, and they actually say, "Body, I'm safe. I feel I'm okay with this," and they pull their hands away, and there's zero pain. That means that I used my perception, gave an instruction to my body, and my body responded. Like I had a tooth pulled out. I had a tooth that had been bugging me for 10 years, and finally I had it pulled out. I didn't use any anesthesia at all, any numbing or anything. And even the dentist was freaking out. And I had to calm myself from hers, because she was like, so sorry. And I'm like, no, just do it. And I told myself, I'm safe, I'm okay with this. I'm safe, I'm okay with this. And then my body actually regulated the pain sensors in my body. And I was able to pull out the tooth. And it was not an easy extraction. It broke off, and they had to dig in and pull out the two parts of the root. And people go, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, I'm not. As a matter of fact, I didn't put all that chemicals in my body. I had no downtime. Within an hour of doing it, I felt like nothing had happened. A little tender from digging, but it felt like nothing was happening. And again, it's because I changed my conscious perception to be okay with that. And it's very powerful. And this is back to what you think and what you say and how you act and how you perceive things. It takes a while, because it's building a trust mechanism in your body. Because I can say something and not believe it, and that's not true, because belief is in the body. The thought or the saying of it doesn't necessarily make it true. I have to feel it's true. Like I may know something, but I don't feel that something. The feeling sense in the body is back to when we talked about food. I knew I liked that food, but I didn't know what it tasted like. I forgot the memory of it, the feeling of it. So feeling sense in the body is where all the power lies.
And then again, for me, not struggling, but for me it's hard to not teach somebody.
Let's change this. Let's change exactly what you say.
Yeah. To let somebody have the pain, like my children as an example. I love pain, and I love how much it teaches me, and sometimes I also I just don't feel it. like you cut yourself and you just don't feel nothing. Have you experienced that? Where
Yeah.
you cut it, you look at the blood, and you're like, oh wow,
Yeah.
that just happened.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even know.
But you don't feel it, and you don't even know.
So you used a word again and said it's hard.
Yeah.
You set yourself up. Yeah.
How do I reframe that?
I'm learning to.
I'm learning to.
I'm learning to be okay with this.
Okay.
I'm learning. I know that when I do this, this is the right thing. Anything around other than the descriptor that puts a roadblock. Now, listen. In my changing my language over time, I found that what was really funny is that when I would go to work and had, work or goal-based orientation, all my words were correct. They were positive. They were in the direction I wanted. But when I go home, I talk like a potty mouth, right? It's like I'd say, this is sucks, or this hard, this is... But when I'm working, I wouldn't. And somebody pointed it out to me once as we were doing a language model. And I realized that when I was working, I programmed myself. But when I was at home, I programmed myself not to be. So that took me a couple of years to work through because I also had to have somebody to reinforce me because those are habitual words and habitual uses which program my body. So it took me a while to extract that because I had people around me who say, hey, you just said that. You said it again. You said it again. And then eventually over time, I broke the habit.
Yeah. I know, you can't do it like overnight or right away.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
You think about languages. Language is funny, especially in English. We have all this language that's contradictory. We like woulda, shoulda, coulda. Woulda, shoulda, coulda, can't. Those are words that like, I should have done this. That creates anger. I would have done this means that it creates resentment. These are things that program your nervous system to feel a certain way. And that means that the experience, the whole architecture of that experience is bound by that word and that feeling. And if I could just be okay with it, it changes the way that I have experience. Like I should have done this. And I still do this sometimes. So I should have done this. I catch myself. I'm like, no, I did it exactly the way I was supposed to for that time. Next time I'll do it different. Very different than I should have done it this way. Because I should have done it this way means I did something wrong, that I wasn't good enough at it. But it's like, next time I'll do it this way. That's like being at the gym. I didn't hit it. I failed. No problem. I'll do it again. Next time I'm going to get it. So if we apply that same way of thinking to our daily lives, it changes the way we live our lives dramatically.
I learned a lot from the gym, from that.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah.
Like that I don't care how I don't judge myself when I go there. I don't judge myself on my, like, if I'm feeling... I don't judge, like, do I feel good or bad? I just go and see and let it be and let me perform the way I performed that day. And then I don't need instant gratification or results. It comes, you do a little bit every day and then eventually you'll get the results. And even the results are not even the way, the journey is the goal, kind of like being there. It's not the six-pack afterwards. It's more the enjoying that I'm there, clearing my head, getting the peaceful moment, just being with me and my body, feeling the sweat, feeling the pain, having the obstacle. That is the enjoyment.
So apply that same formula
to life.
Jocelyn and the cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm learning to let my loved ones have pain.
Yeah, it's good. Every time I've taken away the pain, like when we built the Human Garage this time, Jason is the architect behind the corporate structure and the training structure. Like he ran the business and I coached him to run the business. This is the first time because I knew how to run a business. I would do it certain ways. I would circumvent problems. As a CEO of a company, I would circumvent problems because I wanted to run perfect. But when I circumvented a problem, I took away the learning experience. And I watched Jason over the years go through lessons that took me 3, 5, 10 years sometimes, learn it in weeks or months. And then once he learned that, there was pain to that lesson, and that pain allowed him never to do it again. But if I took away that pain, and because I wanted the performance, and then that lesson, when it came, it would get bigger and bigger and bigger, because those are certain lessons that you have to learn about business, about how to deal with people, about legality, about teamwork. Those are all things that you have to learn over time. And if you haven't had the experience, you can't have the experience in the success only. You have to have the experience in the success and in the failure of something in order to understand it or understand it. If you take away that pain or that experience, then you're going to miss an important component. And this is one of the things that I learned about leadership, because I've always owned, since I was 20, I've owned my own companies, and I've led people. And eventually people would fail. They could never do it as good as I could, and that's why I kept moving forward. This time, I took a very specific approach, and I let Jason go through all of the business, wins and losses at the same time, sometimes going, okay, this is going to hurt a little bit, but it's going to hurt a little bit now, so we don't have to hurt a lot later. And this is part of the idea of letting people have the pain. Again, with reason. If your kid's going to put their hand on the stove, right there, you may not, and it's burning, you might want to, hey, move your hand away. And then you might also want to, hey, take the hand and go touch it really quick and go, whoa, that didn't feel good. Now, that may be an intervention to give them an experience. But if people do not have the experience, then it will come out again sometime. And if it comes out the second time or the third time, it gets bigger each and every time. The lessons don't stop until you go through them. And that's with every aspect of life.
That's why I feel like having a family and kids is so beneficial, because it's so difficult and so hard that it sucks for people to not have that pain and that to experience that the struggle.
It's difficult, hard, and it sucks. You just said it.
That's a lot of words.
It's part of an experience, and since we're
that's
already...
Okay, I'll rephrase it.
Okay.
Okay, for me personally, I love how challenging having a family and a wife and kids is, because it's my biggest teacher. It is my biggest...
There you go.
Motivator.
Doesn't that sound better?
That sounds so much better.
It feels better.
It doesn't sound like it ends. It sounds opening.
Yeah.
And not closing.
Yeah.
Like closing statements.
Yeah.
Opening statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's a habit. It's a habit because we learn to frame our world in a certain way.
Yeah. I know, and it takes great practice, because you fall right back. You fall right back to your old patterns. Yeah.
This is where community comes in, because community can reinforce behavior. I can tell people around me, I don't want to say this anymore. When you catch me saying it, let me know. Yeah, because there is if I've used something or a word or a phrase or done something over and over again for like 20, 30, 40 years, and then all of a sudden I want to extract that from my behavior, it needs to have reinforcement. I need to see it, because I can't see what I do automatically. And that's why reflection is important. Families are a reflection to us. And, my kids are older and now looking at grandkids. So the families are a reflection, and they go through different journeys. Like when my kids were young, it's very different. And the teens are very different. And now when they're adults, married, very different again. And they're different reflection points, but each one of them shows me something. Like when my kids are now getting married in long-term relationships, I go, oh, I get a reflection to my relationships and how I handled them. Well, that's very, very different point of view than when they were young, running around, and I was trying to keep them from massacring themselves or whatever it was. So you're right. These are just experiences. And if I came here to have an experience, I used to want to make things perfect. So I wanted to control the outcome. And if I don't want to control the outcome and I accept the fact that things are perfect and they happen for a reason, then what happens is I stopped using all these statements which tried to limit my pain, because that's really what I was doing. When I say something like I can't or it's hard, what I'm doing is I'm trying to limit myself from having that pain.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm taking away my own pain with my own words, my own learning lessons.
And you victimize.
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's why I never do. Purposely don't know where the conversation goes. Like I know what I wanna like know about you, and like what interests me, but also I don't know how you're gonna be today, how I'm gonna be today, and that's also okay. Like I don't need to be. This is not like a PR performance.
It's a conversation.
Did I nail every question and like get the information, the clickbaits out that I wanted? I don't really like those podcasts where it's like, I'm trying to create this like viral moment rather than like, I like the syncing up. You can really feel it in the beginning of a conversation and the end of a conversation. You feel the flow of the conversation, and it's like a dance. It takes some time, right, to like know where somebody else is and sync up.
Yeah, it's really important. I do not plan almost anything, which has been a discipline, and it's been learning how to not plan and force my days, to let things flow when appointments cancel, when conversations happen. I have a general intent of where I want to go, and then I just let it go. But that's also how I set goals. I say I want to get here, and this is where I want to go. I'm also okay if it doesn't happen. And as a result along the way, but I desire this, and that's my goal. But if it doesn't happen, that means that there's something better for me. So, and then I let the conversation or let the actions go to that alignment. Now, again, this is me at 56 now. After the last 6 years of going through this journey, I definitely was not this person 6 years ago. So this has been a big change in who I am as a person. I tried everything else, and I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So this is from a lifetime of doing stuff and messing it up royally.
Well, I really like that you can't really fail if you perceive failing as trying again, kind of.
Yeah, listen, when I closed down the clinic, it was so funny because I had all the people around me saying, "Oh, that's too bad. Everybody loved it. You really failed." And I'm like, "No, I didn't fail. I was trying to tell people I didn't fail. I wanted to bring something to the world to help people." And I realized the clinic wasn't the way to do it. So I started to work my way out of the clinic, but people didn't understand that. They're like, "Why would you leave that? It's successful." Yeah, but I didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't meeting the roadmap of where I wanted to. So failure is only defined by either not doing it again or not learning the lesson that experience taught you. Like if I do something but I didn't absorb the lesson from it, then that's a failure. But if I do something and then I try again and I try again and I try again until I figure out the way, then that's just education. And I prefer the model of being educated in my life right now. And I'm constantly being educated by every situation. For me, every day is like, wow, okay, I didn't see that. And when I have a situation that I don't like or that's uncomfortable, where I perceive that situation is going to cause a problem or something like that, the words I use are, I laugh, I go, can't wait to see how this one's going to work itself out. And that reframing it with a laughter creates a little oxytocin and puts my mind in a way that I'm looking for the answer. And whether that answer is generated by me or somebody else, I'm setting it up so that I can receive. And again, this is something that is new. It's a lifetime of a journey to get here. So if you're listening to this and you're not doing that right now, just take incremental steps every day. You're not going to be perfect up front, but these are things that you can add on a little bit each day. You get people to give you reflection. If you want to take a word out of your life, tell everybody around you that every time you use that word, tell me. Maybe even say, every time I use this word, I'm going to give you $5 or something like that. Put some pain into it as well.
Well, I really like the way you talk to yourself. And how you like rephrased my words. That was really cool.
Well, just a reflection.
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't know that you were on the path that you're on, working to better yourself and in every way, shape, or form and experience life in this way, then I wouldn't have had that conversation. I just would have let you go through. But our conversation was literally about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I watch you and how you're living your life and what you're doing and the way that you phrase and set up things in your life to be successful, and that's why you are successful. It would have been really cool when I was younger to have somebody talk to me this way, but I didn't. I learned it all, and I think I'm really good at it now, or getting better. Also because I didn't have somebody talk to me this way. I learned the hard way, which doesn't mean everybody has to learn every lesson at the same velocity that I did. My whole thing is to go through, have the lesson, let people have their experience in the lesson without having to have, they don't have to have a level 10 pain. If they have a level 2 pain, it still works. But pain is the greatest motivator of the human experience. And if we try to remove pain, then we lose the ability to adapt as a species.
I feel like if we eliminate pain, everything becomes pain.
It does. Yes, it does.
If you don't, like my human experience, my 10 is still a 10, right?
Yeah.
I just have never felt 100 or like 10 is 10.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if the pain was real or if it was not real, kind of.
Pain is perceptual.
Yeah.
Yeah. And go back and watch those posts where I actually deliver pain to somebody and I get them to program themselves out of it in real time. It's hilarious. I keep doing this over and over again because I like to show clinicians and doctors that acute pain can go away in a second when you address it. Pain is your human experience saying, I need you to pay attention. If you pay attention, the pain drops right away.
Yeah.
Hard to believe for somebody who's in pain, and for me, my whole life in pain. But that's my experience today.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Every time I've been in pain in my life, it was like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
listen, just please listen to me. Stop what you're doing.
Stop what you're doing. Do something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just listen. All the signals are there. The pain is the indicator of like, hey, something is happening here. Like you need to listen to this.
If
you need to address it. Otherwise, it just creates more pain. It will stay. Like
and if you fear it, when you have a fear mechanism, your body goes off, you fire adrenaline. So if you take even a physical pain of a 2 or 3 and you fear it, you fire adrenaline, that 2 or 3 becomes a 6 to a 9 instantaneously.
When you obsess about it, it becomes like a 10.
Yeah. Yeah. 10 out of 10, yeah.
I love the saying also, the worst thing that has ever happened to you is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. Kind of.
Yeah. That's a good saying.
Because you can't really compare pains.
No, because it's all perceptual.
It's all perception. So like like a hard day at work is for somebody else a real life war situation in getting shot or
Yeah, hard day at work could be bullets coming at you and getting shot, where a hard day at work can just be arguing with your coworker. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, thank you so much, Garry.
It's been a pleasure. It always is. I love spending time with you, with Jocelyn, the family. You're doing things, you're asking the questions, like I said before, that make a difference. I feel that the world has stopped asking questions. And they look to other people's experience. The questions create the difference and the pain or the contrast, which allow us to grow. And you're always asking the questions, which is what I love about you.
Elon Musk says that we don't even know what to ask anymore.
Yeah.
We don't know the question.
We don't know the question. So if we don't know the question, we can't grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't find the answer if you don't know what you're asking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a great time spending time with you again.
Thanks, Garry. All right.